Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. We're back on GT Sport and we're back with the top 24 stars race that took place last night at Suzuka for the Manufacturers Championship. It's the final test season before the proper season gets underway. You can see they're going through the grid. We've got some very well known drivers on GT Sport and some of the best on the game, and we didn't really hook our lap up in qualifying. I was a little bit disappointed with the time I got, but the problem with the Renault RS01 at this track is it's extremely difficult on the hairpin. If you give it a try, you'll see what I'm talking about. Go into time trial, put BOP on, etc. Put the default setup to racing our tyres on and get to the hairpin and watch how the car handles. It is so tricky. The aim of this race was just to try and keep it on track at all times and see if we can just keep the car consistent. So we managed to qualify ourselves in P12, I think it was. You're going to see us in a second, which isn't the worst it could be. We were still only, I think we were under a second off the pole lap. This isn't my strongest track, although I felt we could have got ourselves into the top 7 or top 8 in qualifying really. I felt a 159 was on the cards. I just didn't hook the lap up at all. So you can see there we're starting P12, and then going down the grid you've got some other cars. You've got the Toyota in P14. That is quite a nice car at this track. I've driven that a few times. It's very consistent, and going down the back end of the field, you can see some of the cars that some people are less wanted to use for this championship, and there is some issues I have with the way they do this. I really think they need to up the amount of manufacturers allowed in the top 24 stars race to at least 3 or 4 per car to make it a bit more competitive. That's just my view, but they're choosing to do it the 2 at the moment, which I feel is a little bit too much. I think 4 cars per manufacturer would actually work a lot better and provide a faster top 24 stars race, as at the moment you find a lot of people are just picking cars that are not that great and get themselves to the top 24 stars race, which I feel it shouldn't really be like that. I feel like it should be the top 24 basically, but anyway, it is what it is, and this is where we start P12. And like I say, a little bit disappointed. And this is another thing that a little bit of an issue with the way you start the races on this game, because with it being a manual start like on iRacing, you get to control the starts. Watch how much I lose out at the beginning of this start now. Because of the way the countdown works, look where it stops on me. It stops me there, right in the middle of the track after it turns me automatically. So I'm compromised straight away, and I've got the Aston Martin right behind me, which is a very fast car down the straight. So we're going to go to the inside, having to go defensive right from the start. Really disappointed with the way that started us, but nothing we can do. You know, sometimes these things happen, and I couldn't really do anything about it. So you can see I decided to let him go there, save some fuel, and just let him go. There was no point me fighting that on the inside and coming into contact and wrecking both our races. He had the right really for that corner. He had got himself ahead, so I gave him the space that was needed through there. So now we're just concentrating on saving some fuel. We're going to mix the cameras up in this because the recording was stuttering and missing sections out, so I can't stay on board with cockpit all the time. So to make the recording a little bit faster and easier, I'll just be switching between the replays and the onboard. So that's how we'll do it pretty much throughout the whole video. We'll keep swapping it around. So you can see that I'm trying to put some pressure on this Aston Martin through this section, as I know that is where it is weak. So I'm putting pressure on, but while saving a little bit of fuel. We were going to go for the 2-stop strategy. That was a strategy I had to go for, because the Renault RS01 just couldn't do that many laps on the tyres. It was struggling massively. This is the corner where I was really struggling. Look how I have to take it. I had to take a really tight line and kind of keep brake input in all the way to the apex, and look how much time we lose out on the Aston Martin, how much time that Toyota gains on us in that corner. It's such a tricky corner. It's so strange. If you even try and do it like you do it in the RSR or the Toyota behind me, the Renault RS1 will completely spin round in 360 degrees. It's such a strange thing. I don't know if it's an issue with the default setup or what. It's just not very nice on that one corner. I've never come across another corner on any other track with this car where it does it. It's just that one corner. It's such a strange thing. I mean, it was fine at Brands Hatch on the hairpin, but this track, I don't know if it's a little bit too tight, the hairpin. It causes massive issues. So you can see again, that was really frustrating, because that's the point of the track where I want to get in the slipstream with the car ahead, and I just can't get in the slipstream for any overtaking moves. So every time we get to that hairpin, we're losing time. But all I've got to do now is just try and concentrate, keep our head down, and be very patient in this race, because this is a very competitive race. Obviously, 24 of some of the best drivers on GT Sport in this race. Obviously, not all the best drivers, because the way they do these races, we've only 2 manufacturers allowed. But it's tactical. You've got to be tactical in picking your car and getting yourself into this race. I feel like I did quite a good choice with the Renault. It was competitive at a lot of tracks. We had some really bad luck in the previous races, as you guys would have known. I felt like I could have been very high up on that, in the top 10, very highly rated, if it wasn't for some of the bad luck we had in terms of people dive bombing and other issues in the game. So you can see now we're managing to stay with this guy in the Asman, and we're gaining through this section even while we're fuel saving. So we're doing okay. We've got some consistency. We're managing to put some reasonable sectors in. I can't really do too much. We're already over 10 seconds behind the leaders, and it's only the start of lap 2, so we've lost a massive amount straight away. So this race was really a combat. I really wanted to run this aggressively, running one mixture through every single stint pretty much, but we weren't able to do it. So we're going to switch through. You see there, we're on the TV replay cameras, and you can really see the weird angles I have to take for that corner. And look how much better exits the other cars get compared to me. Luckily, we managed to get out of the corner okay-ish. I spent a long time trying to get used to this track because I tried it out in a sprint race that was on a few weeks before. I think it was about a week before, and I had experienced it then. So I knew I had to get on the game early on Saturday and really get used to the car. So we did a good hour of practice, just trying to get used to the car and getting some consistency. That was the main aim for this race. Try and build some consistency up. As you can see there, we've got some really close racing on. You can see a car in the distance there making a move for a position. We're currently, I think it's P12 or 13 there, and just trying to keep it consistent. Going through that corner, Toyota's a really strong car. It's not the fastest, but it's really easy to drive around this track. It's got a lot of grip, and it doesn't really struggle on any corners. It's able to really get on the power early, whereas some of these corners I was having to be a bit careful with this RS01. The RS01 has actually probably got the most potential at this track, but to hit that potential, it's just not possible every lap. So you can see there, car's going defensive into turn 1. I'm just going to keep on the line, very normal racing lines. You can see there the game looks again amazing. It's obviously it's Suzuka in this kind of twilight zone where the sun's about to set. It looks amazing again, so the replay footage does look really good. You can see there it's like a real Blancpain race. Really, I do enjoy it. That's the only good thing about this manufacturer rule. It adds a lot of variety into the choices of cars. You can see we're going to go back on board as we're trying to chase down these cars up ahead. We've got P10, 11 and 12 really closely ahead. Again, we can catch up through this section. I'm able to really gain some time through this section, and then it's coming up to that hairpin. We've just got to try and get on the power as early as we can without compromising the exit. You can see getting really close through these sections. I felt really comfortable with the RS01. It was really nice to drive. I was able to get on the paddle nicely, and I felt stable for that. I was even saving fuel and gaining on, as you can see there. Going into the braking zone, this is again, you can just see, look at that unusual line I have to take, and again, being careful before I put the power down. You can see I'm kind of putting braking input at the same time as accelerating, because if I come off of one without leaving the other one off, or like if I coast at any point, the car will just spin round instantly. It's the hardest car I've ever driven on this track, but we did the best job I could do, I felt, in this race, with controlling it and not pushing it too far on any situation. You can see, I didn't want to, this is a race where I just wanted to get a good solid result. After last time in the last top 24 stars race, we felt a little bit, our car wasn't really that good in terms of fuel saving, and the track didn't suit it. So this track, we've got a car that's got a little bit more potential, so I've got to really try and keep consistency and see if we can get ourselves close to the top 10. You can see the Aston Martin has a massive moment there, spinning, coming out of the fast corner, so that's one position gain. We've got ourselves up to P12, and now we've got the Ford Mustang right in front of us, which is an absolute, it's a bit of a nightmare for us, because the RS01 so fast through the straights, but through the corners, and then as soon as we get to the straights, it's just a struggle to keep with that car. As you can see, he was making a move on the car ahead there. The car ahead had to go defensive. It's got such a good straight line speed, that Mustang. It's why a lot of people use it for Monza. The RS01, however, probably one of the weaker cars in a straight line, but then really strong through the corners, and that's one of the reasons why I chose this car, because through the corners, this is why I really needed to get a better qualifying as well, so I could get ahead of some of these cars and really just drive aggressive for that first stint and the second stint. But you can see we had to change our strategy and the plan of action. I'd practiced this, doing this race about 2-3 times, doing it aggressively and not saving fuel, and it was definitely the fastest way. I've done a couple of runs saving fuel, obviously, and comparing it, and the aggressive way of doing it was definitely the fastest, but that's not possible with the way this race is going at the moment. I've just got to try and keep myself on the track as much as I can, and just try and keep reasonable lap times. I can't be driving aggressively, because if if I drive one mixture, I'm burning up fuel when it's not really going to gain anything. So for the straight, we've gone into one mixture. For the corners, we're trying to save a little bit of fuel. I'm not going drastic fuel saving because I need to stay as close as I can to the cars in front. As you can see there, as soon as I come out the hairpin, the car behind me catches up, and then the car in front, driven by Callum Jones in the Ford Mustang, just pulls away. It's a real hard thing with this car. If it wasn't for that one corner, I felt pretty confident that we would have been a lot higher up on the grid as well. It's just that I just couldn't get that corner nailed. So you can see up ahead, one of the cars has actually got a penalty. I think that's a Citroen driver up ahead. As you can see there, we're going to switch back to the TV replay cameras as we watch the cars all going through the 130R and then going into braking zone. Look how close we can get to that Ford when it comes to the braking and the fast corners, and then when we get to the power zone, it just breezes past it, like into the distance. There was not much I could do in terms of staying with it. You can see I'm trying to hold on to its slipstream, trying the best I can to get near it, and then through the corners I really wanted to put some pressure on you. We're going to see now, I'm going to start putting some pressure on behind this guy through the corners and trying to force an error somehow. You can see getting really close to the car in front. Look how close we're getting. We're driving very cllose and just trying to see if there's any sort of an angle I can get through these corners. Not really an overtaking position though through Suzuka, so it's an easy place to defend. All you have to do is really hold the apex and then get on the power first, and there's not much I can do in the RS1. You can see trying to stay as close as I can through this section, just in case I can put some pressure on and force an error somehow. So I'm really attacking at this point now. You can see getting really close, having a little look at different places that I might be able to make a move, but there's just no way I can really make a sensible move. So again, I tuck back in behind him and just try and concentrate on holding this position that I've got. I have to make sure that I'm very careful as well with that Toyota behind me coming out this hairpin, that I don't make an error and lose a position. So it was really a case of controlled aggression. You can see that weird line again. That's the line I have to take through it. Look at the difference between the other cars and the exits they get. That Toyota getting really close to my rear gearbox again on the exit there. But luckily we've got a little bit, just about got in the slipstream of that Ford, which has pretty much helped me defend my position going on to this next corner. I think without that car there, he would have been able to make a little bit of a move maybe into that corner, but luckily for us, we're able to defend that. Again, I've got to be very careful on this back straight where my car is really weak, and luckily again we're in that slipstream of that Ford in front of us, so it's helping us get some speed down the straight and able again to just hold off that Toyota behind us. The Toyota and the RS01 are very similar in terms of the way they drive and speed through the corners, and in terms of top speed as well. So if he gets our slipstream, he's going to be able to get a run on us. So luckily, again, look how close we're getting to that Ford in the braking zones. But then again, when we get on the power, he's just going to pull away again, and there's just no way I can get close enough to make a move. It's one of them really frustrating races, but one of them races I really enjoy because it's a case of one car being really strong in one area and another car being really strong in a different area, and that's what I enjoy about GT Sport. Every car has its strengths and weaknesses, and it really does show in these top 24 stars race. As you can see again, the Ford runs a little bit wide through there. I'm able to really put some pressure on now, getting as close as I can. You can see how close we are on that replay camera. It's really close racing between us three here now. This is why these top 24 races are so enjoyable to be in. You know, there's always good racing going on pretty much all over the field. It's very rare that you can find the car that's not battling some ways. You can see we're getting so close again through these twisty sections. We're going to have a little look again. I tried to get up on the inside there, but there's no way I can make that move. I have to just back off because I haven't got the speed in my car. As a Toyota also getting extremely close as we go through these really tricky sections. You can see they've put the barrels in for these races now, so it really does make you be very cautious through there. You can't take too much off the corners or you will just wipe your car out. And then going through to the hairpin again, just look how close this action is. You've got about 13 cars all on screen there at one shot. It's amazing to see on this game. You know, the competitiveness is it's very similar to iRacing. That's why we enjoy playing GT Sport, when it's all clean and nice. And thankfully this race was really clean and respectful. A lot of drivers given a lot of respect. I didn't really come up against anyone that gave lack of respect in this race. It was such an enjoyable experience. So you can see now again that Ford got really loose on the exit of that corner, and that's helped me again get into that slipstream and kind of defend myself all the way up this straight. I think without that Ford there, I would have been under severe pressure going into some of these corners off that Toyota behind me, but luckily we've got him there to try and hold on to, and we can also use him for a bit of fuel saving when possible. So I was trying to save as much fuel as possible whilst trying to maintain speed. As you can see, the Toyota braked a little bit late, went wide, and he's actually lost a position. So we've got a a little bit of a gap between him now as I dart off into the pits. And we're going to try and, what I planned to do for this was underfuel a bit, and I actually underfueled a bit too much. You're going to see now we're going in the pits, and let's just see as they start working on the car. During this phase, we actually underfueled a little bit too much. I wanted to underfuel enough to give like dead on 6 laps of fuel, and I mistakenly put 5, enough to do just over 5 laps. So when I came out of the pits, I realised, and I thought I'm gonna have to start saving fuel so I can get to the full 6 laps, and otherwise we're not going to make it to the 6 laps. So I did start doing a bit of fuel saving at this stage. Luckily, well, you could say unluckily or unluckily, the Citroen came out in front of us, so I was able to do some more fuel saving at this stage because I could stay in his slipstream, but I felt like he might hold me up. But that Citroen is a very fast car through the corner, so luckily he's not really holding me up too much, as you can see there. I think he also had a penalty at this stage of the race. I can't remember, we'll see when we go back on with the onboard footage. As you can see there, I was getting really close. I was going to think about making a move. We're obviously on fresh tyres. I wasn't sure what his tyres were like. I think the Toyota stayed out to do another lap during that phase, so possibly he ran to lap 7 just so that he could then do a shorter run on the middle stint. So again, getting really close to that Citroen in front, going into the braking zone, and again, look at the difference in lines, the contrast in lines that we have to take through these corners. It's such a difference between every other car was able to go in really deep, get on the power really early, and I just wasn't able to do it. And look at the time I lose every time. Again, we've lost a lot of time to that Citroen in front of us. Luckily for us though, now we've got a bit of a gap behind us. Some other cars decided to go a little bit longer on stint 1 by the looks of it. So the Toyota that was behind me with that mistake, I think decided to stay out, try and do another lap and try and maybe put some, a good lap in with that before he pits after making that mistake. But I couldn't really risk that with the RS01, with the fact that the tyres would just shoot. They started to die after 6 laps pretty much. They were starting to die at the end of the 6th lap, but then as you can see there, we got a little bit loose. We actually skimmed the grass on the entry into that 130R. Luckily we saved it. Really nice driving. We managed to save that just about. As you can see now, we're going to go back on board, and you can see my issue now. We've got 4.5 laps of fuel, but we need to do 5 laps really to get to the next pit stop phase. So at this point I felt I really need to change the strategy. I'm going to have to do a shorter stint on this first stint, maybe do just the 5 laps, and then go and try and do a longer stint on the last stint, which was going to in itself cause issues in terms of tyre wear and trying to keep the car on the track. As you can see there, that car has got a penalty in front of us. We're going to try and stay with him as much as possible. You can see I'm still saving a little bit of fuel. I need to do that just so that when we come to the pit stop phase I can gain a bit of time, because I felt that with doing them 7 laps on the last stint of the last stint that we go in on the second pit stop, doing the 7 laps on that last stint is going to cause a very last few laps are going to be very tricky in terms of driving and in terms of our lap time. So you can see behind us we've got 2.1 seconds to the Ford that was causing us a little bit of an issue in terms of holding us up through the corners. 2 seconds there, and we've just got to try and concentrate on making sure he doesn't catch us. I felt like he was saving a lot of fuel during the corners because he knew I couldn't get past really. So what he was probably doing was saving a lot of fuel while we were behind him, and then just going straight up to that one mixture on the straights, and there's just no way the RS01 can pass him. So you can see that's probably what he was doing, because he was managing to hold our pace really now, and then he's actually gaining. So he was going really aggressively. I felt that he was probably going full one mixture, maybe one mixture, just saving a little bit of fuel through the corners, but it was definitely more aggressive than the first thing that he was doing. So we're now trying to concentrate on getting as close to that Citroen as we physically can. You can see there, we've managed to gain back a bit of time there. We did lose a bit on the previous lap, but we're starting to close in a little bit. He's not pulling away too much now, and the guy behind us, Callum Jones there in the Ford, I think he seems to be stabilising around 1.5 seconds a gap. So it's not drastically gained, but you can see the difference. As soon as we get through to the end of that straight, look how much time he's gained. He's gained 2 tenths just on that straight behind us. So I really needed to start driving a little bit more aggressively, and again into one fuel mixture and trying to get some speed down this straight. Coming out the exits, my car felt pretty good compared to that Ford. I felt like I could gain some time on the braking zones, and especially through this first sector. If I really hooked this first sector up, then it did give me a bit of a cushion to the Ford behind me. So you can see again, going into this corner, we ran a little bit wide there, trying to push quite hard. Luckily got away without the car spinning. Still in fuel mixture 2. I'm trying to save fuel still, you can see, and it just wasn't going to work. I pretty much knew that there was no way I was going to get myself to the full 6 laps without running out of fuel. So I just felt I had to still save fuel though to cover off the cars that were behind me when it came to the pit stop phase, because I was going to have to put that a little bit extra in fuel as well in terms of getting them 7 laps done. I was going to have to go a bit more aggressive in terms of filling the car up, so I was pretty much going to have to put the full tank of fuel in. So it was another issue there. As you can see there, the car in front of us, we're actually gaining a little bit of time on that Citroen now. We're actually starting to put some better times in terms of sectors. Even though we're saving fuel, we've actually gained about 6 tenths on the car behind us as well, and we're starting to put some better laps. Again, you can see that is the issue we had with the RS01 going into that hairpin. The back end started to step out. Luckily I managed to save it, and we only lost a little bit of time. We lost about half a second there, but compared to the RS01, we were probably losing 3-4 tenths on what I could do in the RS01 on that corner every single lap. So it was a real big amount of time. As you can see, we're already 25 seconds behind the leader. I'm not too sure if he's pitted. I felt like I think that some of the guys in the front decided to do one stop, which I don't think was the right way of doing this race. I think it was definitely faster to do the 2 stop. As you can see, they're pitting lap 9, and then I think Twizzy was one driver that did the 2 stop, which was definitely the right way to do this race. You didn't get a massive loss in the pits, and you could just push so much harder through the whole lap. So you can see now going through the corner, trying to keep it nice and tidy, and the Citroen makes an error, hits that bollard that they've added in. So I do like that they've added them in, because it makes people abide by the track limits a lot more. And we've actually got past him as he skimmed, trying to push too hard in terms of taking that really close to that bollard. He's lost control of his car, hit that, and then we've now got ourselves into P8. However, a lot of people have pitted, so we're not really in P8. As you can see, we've got Callum Jones still behind us there, 1 second behind. We're able to pull away slightly through this section, so I decided now, I think I started using one mixture for these last few laps before I have to pit, to try and give myself maybe a little bit of a cushion in terms of when we pit. So you can see, going a lot more aggressive on this lap. We've managed to build that gap up to 1.5 seconds already through that first sector, so really trying to push on this lap as we try and put some decent times in to give ourselves a chance in that pit stop of not getting undercut and also gaining some time. So you can see there our laps have been fairly consistent in this race: 201, 201, 201, 203, but that was, I think, was when we got stuck behind the Ford, then another 201 and 201. So really consistent, but I could have probably done them times if I was doing a one-stop strategy. But the problem with the one-stop strategy, like I said before, was lap 8 and 9 your tyres are dead with this Renault, and the chances of spinning are very, very likely. So I felt like I made the right decision in the 2-stopper, as we've got Tijani in front of us. Obviously on that one-stop strategy, we're coming to the end of our run on the tyres, so we won't really be able to catch up really at any point in this. The only real good thing is we can use that one mixture, which is going to help us in some areas, but Tijani's obviously on a total different strategy, so we're not really going to catch him up at this stage with our tyres coming to the end of their run and starting to wear out in terms of the traction zones. But luckily we're managing to keep that Ford behind us fairly comfortably, and we're pushing reasonably hard. You can see going through the corners, I was trying to get some speed through this really fast corner and making sure I didn't lose any time. Going into the braking zones, trying to concentrate on not hitting them bollards. You can see the difference in making in terms of the lines you have to take through there now. It's a lot better. That I like that they've done that on GT Sport. They've definitely improved that, and I've heard they've done something similar at Nürburgring in terms of stopping people doing certain things at the Nürburgring, which is great to hear. You know, we needed these things brought into the game. As you can see, Indian Food there, just coming out of the pits on his one-stop strategy. We actually, really important that I got ahead of him there. I didn't want to end up behind him, and I think Callum Jones actually there, you can see he's made, I think as they came out of the pits, he's actually made a mistake trying to get round the outside of him, and you can see he's now a fair bit behind. We've got Indian Food 2.3 seconds behind us, so there's definitely been an issue there. They've both come into that turn 1 together, and we've actually gained a little bit of time now, which is really important. You know, coming to the pit stop phase, I was a little bit worried about that Ford, because you can probably save a little bit more fuel in the Ford and keep your speed down the straight. So luckily for us that happened, and we're still in P7 obviously, but you know, this isn't a real P7. This is, we've got a pit still. These cars up ahead haven't got a pit again. So Twizzy there in the lead on the 2-stop strategy, definitely doing the right strategy. I think there you can see how he's able to probably push so hard now in that Ferrari and just go aggressive to the end. So it was a little bit frustrating that I couldn't get involved with the racing up ahead because of my poor qualifying, and we got held up in the first stint behind cars that were really causing us a bit of an issue. But again, I feel like this race has been a lot more competitive compared to Brazil. We're able to show a bit more speed and consistency, and we're doing a reasonable job in this race. As again, Indian Food is starting to close in on us now. Obviously he's got them fresh tyres on, he's filled this car all the way up, and he's able to then start gaining us. But this lap was the lap I was going to go in the pits, so luckily I wouldn't have interfered with his race anyway. I would have just let him pass. There would have been no point holding him up. So we just tried to really push at this phase, even though the tyres were starting to get really worn. I wanted to push them so that I didn't hold him up. I wanted to make sure I get in that pits and then get our new tyres on and then start refueling. So you can see now we're going to come into the pit stop phase, going into pits now, and you can see we're going to have to change the camera angle again, because this was the point where every time I changed the camera angle is when the video was stuttering and missing out like 10 seconds or 5 seconds or something like that. So we're going in the pit and we're putting the new tyres on, and we need to just be careful in terms of where we're going to come out now. You know, the exit of this corner is really, the exit of the pit lane is really important. You can wipe someone out so easily, so we're waiting for that fuel to go in now. I decided to pretty much fill the car right up. I had to do it pretty much to do the full 7 laps, and now this was going to be the real tricky stint. I've got to do 7 laps on these tyres, and luckily for us we just about come out ahead of that car there behind us. I think it was an Evolution, and that was really important there, coming just out ahead of him. You know, if I would have got caught behind him, that could have been a real race destroying thing to happen, but luckily we've come out just ahead of him. But we've got a lot of cars ahead. You can see they're battling cars, that some of these are on, I think, on a similar strategy to us, but going to pit at the end of this lap. Let's see if they're going to hold us up. As you can see there, getting right up close, we're going to pretty much catch these cars up through these corners straight away. You can see we already caught them up, as they're obviously on the older tyres. Look at that, how close this still is in this race. You know, I think they're obviously towards the back end of the grid because they haven't pitted yet. We've got ourselves who has pitted, but we pitted early, so it's going to be really interesting to see how close the Toyota is when the pit stops are all sorted. As you can see, it's just in the distance there. It looks like the Toyota did a similar thing to us in terms of coming in early. I can just about see him there. You can see him going around the corner down the hairpin. So that is the guy who we're really racing, is our main competition in this race. So going back on board with the footage now, you can see we're in P18, but that's going to change once all the pit stops have took place and they've sorted themselves out. As we've got 3 cars battling up ahead. It's not what I wanted when I've got cars closing in on me that I'm racing with. So you can see they're all battling away. I need to now just concentrate and just be aware of anything that happens with them cars. They're all getting really close, and it's really nervous when you're behind action like this, when you're on a different strategy. So going through the really fast left hand corner now, I take it really well, but you can see there's contact up ahead. I had to just back out, and luckily his car ghosted, which is the new system on the game. So thankfully for that, and again he braked really early there, and we give him a little tap and we actually don't get a penalty, which is really nice to see. So there has definitely been some improvements on the penalty system, but there is other issues that I'm going to have to bring to attention in a separate video. I'm not going to talk about it in this because I want to concentrate on this great action that we've got here now. So into P13 again, and hopefully we can start gaining some time now, as we've got the fresh tyres on, and we've got some cars up ahead that are probably on a one-stop strategy and are probably going to be struggling a lot compared to ourselves, and also some cars that are probably going to extend their last stint, the middle stint, so that they can go more aggressively on the last stint. So you can see we're in P13, but I expected some of these cars up ahead to still need to pit, or we're on different strategies. So you can see I'm trying to push quite hard now because we've got that Toyota behind us who was really driving aggressively as well, and obviously made that mistake where he lost a little bit of time going into the last chicane, and now we're just trying to push as hard as we can in this race. Closing in on that Nissan GTI, you can see the Toyota is just about coming into the screenshot at the end there, and I was fully aware of this. I can see it on my Delta, I can see him in the mirrors just about creeping in on every exit of every corner, so I had to really start pushing as hard as I could at this point and driving as fast as I could, pretty much get out of this RS01 while keeping consistency as well. It was really important to keep this car consistent as possible without making any massive errors. Let's just have a little look how close that Toyota is getting behind us now as we're closing in on that Nissan GTI. You can just about see it coming in on that TV replay camera shot, and we're trying to get as close to that Nissan as possible. I really did not want that Nissan to start holding me up in this race. That would pretty much be the worst thing that could happen. I had to try and get past these as quick as possible, hope that they would pit so I could get on with this race and try and maintain the gap to the car behind me. So again, going into the final chicane, trying to keep it consistent, trying to still get some good exit onto the straight so that I don't get caught up. And again, you can see there we're getting really close at this, and I was really praying at that point he would dive into the pits or something, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen, as these two cars up ahead are getting really close. So this is not what I wanted to happen in this race, you know, getting bunched up with cars that we're faster than, especially when we've got a fast Toyota behind us that was pretty evenly matched to ourselves. It's really not what I wanted, and I really had to just concentrate on seeing if I could find a way past these cars in front of me. So again, pushing hard through this section. This is where my car is really strong, and you can see the difference in the hand. Look how close we can follow the cars up ahead now through this section. I'm going to have a little look down the right hand side there and then try and cut back to try and get a cleaner exit, but again I can't really get on the power maximum because the car in front of me obviously isn't able to take that corner as fast as me, so I have to give it a little lift. And then again we come through to these really fast corners, and I'm just trying to stay behind him just to see if there's an opportunity. I can't really make a move on him at this moment. However, he gets a bad exit. I go to the right hand side, but I had to back off before I did it because we would have probably bumped into him. So again, I can't throw one up the inside there into this overtaking opportunity because of the way my car handles through there. So again, I've just got to be really patient before I get back on the throttle and try and get a good exit. You can see how much the guy is catching us up now because of this in front of us. He's got that gap under 2 seconds, and we've only got 4 or 5 laps to go. So this was a real worry. You know, our previous lap was our fastest lap, but then this is really holding me up. I felt like I had potential to do low 2 minutes if I could just get clean runs in, but now we're really struggling because we're using up our tyre wear. Luckily we've got enough fuel to go to the end. We've not really got an issue with the fuel, but again I needed to get past this Hyundai in front of me, so I go to the right hand side. It looks like he's having to save some fuel, and it looks like he let me go there, so thankfully that's not going to hold me up too much. Trying to take this corner as fast as I can as we run a little bit wide there because of the way we had to take that corner, but luckily I get away with that, coming back on the track without keeping my foot down. One thing to do there is if you do run wide there, make sure you give it a little lift, get the car back on track as soon as possible so it avoids getting a penalty. As you can see there, V Cristiano 94 has got a penalty, and we're able to get ourselves past him and into the, I think we're actually into 11th position there. As you can see now, look how close all these cars are in this race. This is after like 15 laps at Suzuka. It does show you the level of competition on this game and how close people are, as that Nissan GTI is really holding me up through this real twisty section. I really had to get past him somehow, as you can see there, trying to get as close as I can into his slipstream, and just trying to get as close as I can just to see if there's an opportunity to make a move. Again, going into these corners, my car is so much stronger than a lot of other cars through these corners, but we're not able to use that pace, which is really frustrating because obviously the Nissan in front of us just can't take the corner pace as well as us, and there's just no real opportunity to make a move. But you can see there I backed off for this corner because I was putting that much pressure on, and he makes a mistake. I decided to fake it as if I was going to make a move there, backed off before we entered the corner. He went in really deep and then made the mistake all by himself. So we've managed to get ourselves into the top 10 now in this race, in this top 24 stars race, into P9. I'm reasonably happy with that. You know, we've done reasonably well to get ourselves into P9. I felt, you know, with the racing and battling we've been going, and obviously the strategy that had to be changed mid-race, and you know, a lot of issues, but we managed. I think we dealt with them really well, and we've kept consistency. We've not made any massive errors in this race. We've kept the car on the track and not made, you know, stupid errors by pushing too hard. It would have been too risky, I felt, to push this Renault as hard as possible around this track. I felt like it was asking for trouble. So you can see now we're 10 seconds behind P8, but that's obviously a little bit too much for us to really make any sort of gains on him. So coming to the end of lap 15, we need to just start consistency now and putting some reasonable lap times in. We've got P10 who's right behind us still there, 2 seconds behind us. Luckily he looked like he got a little bit held up by the Nissan as well, and through the when we overtook him, so I think he rejoined just ahead of him, so he got held up a little bit, which just gave us a little bit of breathing space again. But again, he's really pushing hard, and we're just trying to keep consistency and maintain our position. You know, a top 10 position finish in this race, I'd be really happy with. You know, considering we started P12 or 13, I think it was, which is not bad, but I felt like I had more to give. So I think if we would have qualified higher and I could have gone on the strategy that I wanted to go on, we would have been a little bit higher up, but I don't think I had the pace of some of the other guys up ahead at this track, not in this car. I felt like if I had the Porsche we would have been a lot more competitive, but in the RS01 it was just too risky through certain corners. So you can see there we've got Rick 916 BMX just ahead of us, a really fast driver, and he's 15 seconds ahead, and it's just too much. He's too far ahead for us to really be able to make any sort of impression on him there. So it looks like we're going to be struggling to get any higher up in this race. As you can see again, that weird line I have to take through that hairpin, it's really noticeable when you drive on board, the weird entry points you have to take in there. If you want to see, obviously try this car out with the BOP on and default setup, etc., and racing on tyres, and you'll see what I mean about the way it handles. It's just such a strange car when you come to that corner, but that's how I figured out I had to take it to keep consistency. There was probably other ways you could take it and be reasonably fast, but I felt that was the most consistent way. As you can see, my tyres are starting to feel a lot of wear now. Obviously we pitted that 1 lap early, so we were going for the 7 laps on this final stint, and the RS01 really doesn't like extending the stints. It really wasn't good on the tyres. So you can see the car starting to become a little bit more lively through the corners. You'll see the rear end slightly drifting sometimes, and I'm having to catch it sometimes. So that's the thing that we had to be really careful of, and just try and keep it consistent. As you can see in front, it looks like VP Bello or whatever his name is has had a little bit of an issue, and we can see him up ahead now. He's actually got some sort of, whether it's been a penalty or he's had a crash or something, as we're now really, you can see how close it is now, and then he's ran wide going through that corner, so he's definitely struggling with something as he rejoins the track just in front of us. And now we've got a chance of getting into P8. You know, this would be even better if we could get ourselves into that position. So I go into full attack mode now. We're going to try our best to get as close to Nissan as we physically can. The only problem we've got now is if he's struggling with something, whether it's tyre wear or whatever it is he's struggling with, we've got an issue that we've got the Toyota getting really close to us now as well. So you can see in that top right hand corner, you can see how close it is now. You've got ourselves really close to him, that Toyota getting closer and closer and closer, and it's like every time I'm able to drive without any cars in front of me, a car just appears to slow me down and start making me get caught up by that Toyota. So at this point I have to admit I was really sweating. I was starting to, you know, feel the pressure, and I was just trying to think, I've got to keep the car on the track, but I need to try and see if I can get past this car because he is holding me up. I need to try. I actually gave him a flash of the lights earlier on because I thought he was struggling, but luckily for us he seems to have settled down now back into a routine, and he's not holding us up massively. However, I definitely have more pace in it than him at this phase of the race. As you can see how much more speed I'm able to carry through the corners. I'm not able to get on the power as quickly as I would like, and because of his car being in the way, but we're trying to get in his slipstream. You look at the difference now. As soon as I pull out, he starts pulling away again, so I have to try and hold on to his slipstream, and there's just no way I can do a pass in this Renault. So again, I have to go through that corner. It looks like he braked mid-corner there, which I was really confused about, because you don't brake really on that corner. It's not a corner you brake on. So I was a little bit, I don't know whether it was deliberate or whether he was just brake checking, I don't know, or just trying to hold the apex, which he's entitled to do. But it really did, it made me back off a bit, and then you can see now the Toyota is even closer. He's under a second now. I'm having a little look and see if I can make a move down there, but it's going to be, I'm not going to try that move on the last lap of the race. I don't want to wipe him out or myself. I want to try and make sure I get some solid points in this race. Going through the corner again, the first corner for the final time. And we have a massive moment on the rear. You can see my tyres are really giving up now. And then again, going through these corners, you can see, look how much I'm having to fight the rear end coming out the corners. Look at that, the car's wanting to slide out. My rear tyres have gone. They have pretty much given up on life on me now at this stage in this RS01. And this is why I couldn't do the one-stop strategy at this track. It just was not possible in this Renault. So you can see I'm having to be really cautious now, but look how close the car is behind us. Look in that top right-hand screen, how close all three of us are now going into this final lap. This is going to be really intense, and it's got to be, we just got to keep the car as tidy and as clean as possible. So I try and get the power as early as possible, because if there's an overtaking opportunity, I've got to be really clever in how I do it. You know, this track is a hard one with this car. As again, I have a little look up the inside, but I can't do that. He shuts the door on me. There's no way I can make it pull that off. And again, the Toyota is on the side of me now. Luckily, I've got the inside line. We're going side by side now on the final lap. I get ahead of him there, So I'm going to have to now go over to the left hand side and go defensive. I get myself in the slipstream, go over to the left hand side, and we're going to go on a really tight angle into this corner, and the rear end is not going to like that. You can see again, I actually had the car drifting through that corner on this final lap. Luckily I managed to hold on to it again on the exit. I'm trying to put the power down and the car does not want to give me the grip that I need. So again, I'm trying to get into the slipstream as that Toyota is going to make a move down our right hand side. I just go to the middle of the track a bit, give him the space on the right hand side, but he's backed out of that move, it looks like, and he's not going to risk that on the final lap. So again, we managed to hold it off through that corner. Then going into the final chicane, we're not really worried about the car in front now. All I'm worried about is trying to maintain this position. So we're trying to concentrate on keeping the grip on the final exit there. We managed to get through that corner just about without sliding, and we go over the line in P9, and that was a really enjoyable race. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know we finished quite a long way off the leader. You can see there Twizzy was in his own league on this track. He drove perfectly, brilliant drive by him and Tidgney there. But I felt if I would have been able to run the strategy that I would have liked, we could have been pretty close to Indian Food and Rick there in P7 and 6. But I don't feel like I had the pace to do much more than that this track. It's not one of my strongest tracks. So a thoroughly enjoyable top 24 star race. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I know I did. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of these races. We're going to be back with more daily races, more Assetto Corsa videos, and more Project Cars videos very soon. Thanks again for watching, everyone.